Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar from Bonn to COP29, Understanding Finance for Climate Action, organized by Carbon Care InnoLab. My name is Ingrid. It's my great pleasure to be your MC today. The Bonn Climate Change Conference held in June was a crucial midpoint in the journey towards COP29. It serves as a vital platform to assess progress, identify challenges, and chart the way forward in the global fight against climate change. Carbon Care InnoLab sent 3 youth delegates to the Bonn conference, and we are very delighted to have all of them with us today. This webinar aims to unpack the significance of the Bonn conference, to explore the role of the private sector in climate action, and also to discuss how Hong Kong's business community can contribute to more ambitious climate actions. So to kickstart our webinar, we are very happy to have Mr. Zhongchen Yao, the co-founder and CEO of Carbon Care InnoLab, to give us an opening remark. Hi, Chen Yao, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us today to have a conversation on one of the most important challenges to humanity, the increasing, accelerating climate crisis. You can feel the heat in Hong Kong. If you are in Hong Kong, if you are outside, you might feel the heat even more severe, and you hear about the devastating hurricane in the Caribbean and all the other extreme weather events happening around us. So climate crisis is here to stay and accelerate. So our action as likewise need to be increased to combat it. But unfortunately, we don't see the commitment by governments, business, and other sectors nearly as enough. So we are anticipating a world at temperature higher than the Paris target. Today, we are very happy to have delegates who have been to the Bonn conference, as well as private sector leaders, such as Andy from the Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing, as well as Ellen from Climate Finance Asia, to share with us the perspective from what private sector can do, what finance can do. The reason why Carbon Care InnoLab is so concerned about sending people to UN conference. In COP29, we are going to send some youth delegates and Bonn, and we have been doing this since Paris. We want the youth of Hong Kong to have an international perspective. We know we can contribute. We are not just engaged with the international community for business, tourism, and trade. We also have a role to play as global citizens. We suffer as well as we can offer solutions. So I hope today we hear how the young people perspective and how they commit to work for a better tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to end. At the same time, I just want to remind people that next year, the Hong Kong government will review the roadmap to 2050, the carbon neutrality of Hong Kong. We will have an opportunity to input into the review of the climate action plan. And the panelists, the speakers will go into that a little bit more. So I welcome you to give your questions and comments, and we will learn from the collective wisdom. So thank you very much. I'll hand back the floor to Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And for the coming session, we are delighted to have two of the Bonn Conference delegates with us, and they are Ms. Ho Wai Foon, the Program Manager of CCIL, and also Ms. Lorraine Wong, the co-founder of Gen Z Hong Kong, that is the Generation Climate Hong Kong, and they will share with us their key takeaways and insights from the conference. Now I'll leave it to Foon to share with us.
Thank you, Ingrid, and good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Fun. I'm from Carbon Care InnoLab, an NGO that has been dedicated to addressing the critical challenge of climate change since our co-founder, Chen Yao and Albert, first established it in 2014. And over the 10 years, we have been closely monitoring the international climate negotiations because climate change is a truly global issue that requires global efforts to tackle effectively. And so that's why it is also demands actions from all stakeholders, like the governments, the NGOs, private sectors, all of us. We know that the Conference of the Parties, as known as COP, has become a well-known conference for those following climate change issues. But like the Bonn Climate Change Conference is less discussed, and especially here in Hong Kong. And Lorraine, Hermia, and I attended this free 2 weeks long conference last month. And our organization is the only one from Hong Kong participating in this conference. So today I'm very happy to provide a brief introduction to the Bonn Climate Change Conference and also explain why it is so important and also highlight the key issues that we need to keep an eye on leading up to COP29. And then Lauren will share her firsthand experience following the climate negotiations. So to answer the questions, why Bonn Climate Change Conference is important. Bonn actually is the headquarters of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Bonn Climate Change Conference is an annual meeting that take place in midway between the previous years and the upcoming year's COP. And this makes the Bonn Conference a strategic moment to, like the first one, following up on the outcomes and decisions made during the previous year's COP's negotiation, and also preparing and coordinating for the upcoming COP meetings. And while Bonn Climate Change Conference may not get as much as public spotlight as COPs, and the discussion there plays a crucial role in shaping the negotiation at the COP. And this is because the sections in Bonn focus on the scientific and technical elements of the climate negotiations, also set the agendas for COPs, and also explore the implementation of the past decisions. And this year, at the heart of the discussion in Bonn was the issue of climate finance. You may think about that finance is always under the spotlight of the climate negotiations. But this year, for the first time, the three presidency of the COP28, 29, and also COP30 are working formally together in a trica system, calling for all countries to step up their climate finance contribution ahead of COP29. And many are already referring COP29 as the finance COP, recognizing the importance of these issues. And by the end of COP29 in Baku, all parties are expected to agree on a new global climate finance goal, the new collective quantified goal, as known as the NCQG, on climate finance to replace the US dollar 100 billion a year goal presented in COP15 in 2009. But unlike the billion target, the new goal is meant to be based on the analysis of the developing countries' needs. And many independent assessment has estimated that trillions of dollars, not billions, are required to support the developing nations in responding and also in mitigating the effects of the climate crisis. So in Bonn, the negotiations were focused on the quantum, means the amount of the goals, how much money should it aims for, and also the mobilization and provision of the financial sources. Where does the money comes from? And many developed countries has proposed that all sources of finance are needed: public, private, international, and also domestic. So the private sector is expected to hold the key to unlocking the vast resources required to tackle these global challenges. And the second key issue about the next round nationally determined contributions, NDCs at COP30. The first ever global stock at GST has found that we are currently headed towards a 2.4 degrees Celsius of global warming. And the GST concluded in COP28 last year with a historical agreement to transitioning away from the fossil fuels. And this decision must be reflected in the next round of NDCs, which are due to be submitted in February of 2025, which means next year. So we still have less than a year time to prepare for the new NDCs. Like achieving the goals, which requires a whole of society approach, and also we need a sufficient climate finance, both from the public and also the private sector. So, and with the wide financial support and the upcoming NDCs can become attractive investment plans to like scaling up the renewable energy and also improve the energy efficiencies. Of course, accept the mitigation and also the finance and adaptation is also an important area to follow up on. So I think Lauren will share a little bit more on this area. So I will over to you, Lauren.
Thanks for the beautiful insight. And hello, everyone. I'm Lorraine, and I'm one of the CCIF Youth Delegate to SV60. And it is my honor to be here to share my insights from SV60 to you all. And during SB, I actually follow two major negotiations. One of them is adaptation and another is GST. And regarding how private sector can actually contribute to the climate actions, I also got a few insights about that. So the first one would be adaptation fund. And under the current system, actually 2% of the adaptation fund comes from the certified emission reductions. So maybe some of the private companies have been contributing to the adaptation fund. But of course, we need a more aggressive goal and more funding to protect the vulnerable groups. Unfortunately, the adaptation fund negotiations went under Rule 16, and which means that we have to discuss further in COP29. The major reason is that parties do not want to prejudge the negotiations in NCQG. So, however, like some of the NGO did mention that like a fund is not the same as the climate finance goal. Adaptation fund is actually they had a developed financial mechanisms and channels under the conventions and the Paris Agreement to able to deliver the adaptation fund to the vulnerable countries. So they are not climate finance goals, and therefore these adaptation fund negotiations should not be paused because of the fact that NCQG is still under negotiations, and it kind of hindering the process of adaptation fund, and we hope that it can be continued maybe in the future. And regarding when we look into the situations in globally, there are only 10% of the climate finance actually go to the adaptation. So in Hong Kong, I think the situation is pretty much the same. Many of the climate finance actually go to the development of renewable energy or go to the development of technology innovation. But actually, as the climate change is affecting us or affecting the vulnerable groups in a very urgent way. So we need to put more finance to help the vulnerable groups, and adaptation is the way out. So there's actually a developed developed negotiations, which is called Global Goal on Adaptations and UAE Framework for Global Climate Resilience. they developed like a few thematic targets to, like, for example, on health, on water, or on food security. And we, as private sector, I think that in Hong Kong, we can actually contribute more to these thematic targets. For example, maybe in terms of health, maybe we can provide more funding for healthcare system in terms of stroke preventions, or maybe we can help the coastal community to cope with the challenge they faced under the extreme weather. Or maybe even though as a young people, I would say children's and youth's education is also a very important aspect that we need to look into, or we need to get more funding to further educate our youth, or educate our future generation on how can we protect ourselves under the climate change. So this is the way out, and this is what private sector can actually contribute more to the adaptations. And when we look into a bigger pictures, or when we look into how private sector can contribute to climate actions as a whole, and it is essential for us, or for them, to contribute to the national determined contribution, which is the NDC and the governmental document to disclose the country's ambitions on climate actions. And in Hong Kong, we have a pretty similar things called Climate Action Plan 2050. And regarding how like private sector can actually contribute to the NDC, we need to look at the fact that like there are still gap between public related and private owned companies. Like 70 out of 100 like public companies actually have disclosed their, or they do have set their net zero target, but only 40% of the privately owned companies have done so. So of course, we need to have a more aggressive like net zero targets in private sectors. And also when we come to NDC implementations, the easiest ways is to align our private company strategies with the long-term public NDCs. And of course, other things I believe that Hong Kong companies has done and have been doing is that like developing some innovative technology solutions, or provide some like funding solutions to the climate actions. And another way is that we can actually also contribute to the tracking of NDCs. Like, for example, actually we are like disclosing our ESG data. It actually helps the government to continuously monitor the like greenhouse gases and maybe report back to the on the climate action plan. And there's also a way for climate like for private companies to improve like on the governmental NDC is that during like COP28, we in the global stocktake negotiations, we have developed a target to tripling renewable energy and doubling energy efficiencies. So in 2025, the governments need to renew their NDC, and based on this outcome of the GST1. So basically, this target will be implemented in a lot of governments NDC. But in the current situations, companies are only reporting their energy consumptions, but only 10% of them has really set their tripling renewable energy targets and doubling energy efficiency targets in their like climate strategies. So we like as a private companies or private sector, we need to align our like company strategies together with the international climate negotiation. And that's the way we can contribute again to the NDC. So last but not least, Hong Kong Climate Action Plan is going to update every 5 years following the Paris Agreement. So I believe that like maybe many consultations will be happening in 1 or 2 years. So corporates like need to proactively contribute to the feedback to the current plan, or even create a sectoral action plan to better or like concretely give an update and create more aggressive NDCs and climate action plan in Hong Kong. And that's my sharing, and thanks all for the listening. And maybe I pass my mic back to Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Lorraine and Fun, for sharing your experiences and insights. It's really great to quickly learn the key discussions of the Bonn conference. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Kwok Hyo Chung, the Senior Program Officer of CCIL. He will introduce the Carbon Care label, which provides a trustworthy recognition of companies' efforts towards carbon reduction. Now I shall pass the floor to Chung.
Thanks, Ingrid, and thanks, Fun, Lorraine, and Chanya for the introduction and sharing. So right now, I will introduce the Carbon Care label scheme from Carbon Care InnoLab. To achieve the global goal of net zero and also Hong Kong to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, Hong Kong must urgently reduce the carbon emissions through different areas, such as improving the energy efficiency, increasing the use of renewable energy, and also adopting circular economy practices. And the realization of all these requires proactive action and adequate resources from different sectors to transform the climate crisis into opportunities. And our Carbon Care label scheme provides a roadmap for corporates and also organizations across different sectors to take ambitious climate action and also a recognition of efforts in decarbonization and also promotion of sustainability. And our Carbon Care labels scheme have different benefits. It encourages entity and transition of to low carbon economy, and including specific measurement for construction sites and events. It recognizes good practice of disclosing in ESG reporting and also to promote circular economy. And here you can see we have different series of our Carbon Care label scheme, and I would introduce a bit one by one. And our scheme benchmark the commitment and achievements in carbon reduction against the latest international standards and best practices, including recognition by the GRESB, and it provides expertise on carbon accounting, reduction or offset solutions, and also in ESG reporting, and also recycling for circular economy. It also reduced the risk provided by brought by the climate change, and also save the cost brought by climate change, and also increase revenue through sustainability innovations. Our scheme also have the award ceremony to recognize the efforts of different applicants, and we would invite the applicants to our award ceremony. And also it would include the seminars about the global trend about climate change, and also that would be relevant to different sectors as well. We also have the brand value as a recognized sustainability leader through achievement, media exposure, and the use of our Carbon Care label, and also to encourage organizations to reduce the carbon emissions in their operations. Here you can see our previous awardees from our Carbon Care label scheme. You can see that it covers a wide range of industry, including listed companies, hospitality industries, also property management, and also some banking, financing institutions. All these have been awarded through our Carbon Care label scheme. And our CCIL is the issuing body of this Carbon Care label, and the Carbon Care Asia from Deloitte is the trademark owner of this scheme. Here, I would briefly introduce the series of our different label. First is about the Carbon Care ESG label. It is a special recognition to the best performers in ESG reporting in important areas. To benchmark the latest global and also the trend in Hong Kong, we have actually upgraded the application criteria since 2023 to reflect the latest trends in this area. And through this Carbon Care ESG label, we have 4 criteria. And if the applicants can fulfill all the criteria, then it would be awarded the highest level of our scheme. And here is the Carbon Care label about carbon management. It is emphasizing on the measuring, reducing, and offsetting the carbon emissions. We would benchmark the carbon reduction progress of the applicants against its base last year, so that we can see the progress of the applicants in its carbon reduction. And we have different levels to be awarded to the applicants, depending on their achievement levels. And if the companies or the organizations achieve carbon neutrality through carbon reduction measures or maybe carbon offsetting, and they will be achieved the Carbon Care Champion label as well to recognize their performance. And here we also have the carbon management, carbon care construction label. It is introduced for construction projects management in achieving, again, carbon reduction associated with construction process and also material production. The logic of the carbon care construction label is quite similar to the carbon care label, except that carbon care construction label is specific for the construction sites. It also benchmarks the performance of the applicants in its carbon reduction progress against the business as usual practice of the construction industries. And again, if the applicant can achieve carbon neutrality through its operation or full offsetting, then the company can be awarded the Carbon Care Champion label in the construction areas. We also have the Carbon Care Circularity label. It provides a framework to introduce a circular economy concept into organizations' operations, and it emphasizes measuring, reducing, and recycling of the used materials to promote circular economy. For this label, the applicants need to provide the waste snapshot or the waste audit, and also to record the disposal, the usage, and also the recycling of its paper products to achieve this Carbon Care Circularity label. And last one is the Carbon Care Event label. It is designed specific for different events, and if the event itself can achieve carbon neutrality, then it is able to award the Carbon Care Event label. And also to recognize the long-term efforts from the awardees in carbon reduction or promotion of sustainability. For the applicants who have been awarded 3 years or above, including current year, then the applicants will be automatically awarded the Carbon Care Star label to recognize its long-term efforts. Here are some photos of our award ceremony from last year, and you can see that besides the ceremony, we also have different presentations and also panel discussions to talk about or to share about the discussions from the COP28 last year, and also the latest trend or discussions about how to address climate change or what other sectors have been doing about climate change. And the award ceremony this year will be held tentatively in December 2024, and it will also include the highlights or the takeaways from the COP29 in Baku. And here are some key dates for our Carbon Care label. The application starts already, and the deadline for application is 31st October this year. And as mentioned, the award ceremony will be in mid-December this year. So if you are interested in our scheme, or if you would like to know more about our Carbon Care label scheme, please feel free to reach out to us for more details or discussions. Here is my introduction of the Carbon Care label scheme, and back to you, Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chong, for introducing us the Carbon Care label scheme. And we really hope more businesses and organizations would join the scheme so we can contribute more towards a sustainable future together. And now, to dive deeper into our key focus area for today, which is the climate finance, we have a distinguished panel of experts who will share their insights on the topic, Understanding Finance for Climate Action. So let me first welcome our 4 panelists. They are Mr. Alan To, the CEO of Climate Finance Asia Limited. And we have Mr. Andy Lau, the head of CSR and Foundation at HKEX, the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited. We have Ms. Hermia Chan, one of our Bonn Climate Change Conference delegates, and also Mr. Kevin Lee, the researcher of CCIL. So this panel will particularly explore how private sector can engage and contribute to the city's climate action plan and also some other climate goals. So we will start off by inviting each panelist to share their perspectives, and I will facilitate a panel discussion where we can dig deeper into the topics. And of course, we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. So first, we will have Kevin to share with us. Kevin has more than 20 years of experience working with development and environmental NGOs. He is also experienced in many different roles, ranging from research, grant making, to working with partner organizations in the Asia region. So now I will pass the floor to Kevin.
Okay, let me share the screen now. Okay, so thanks, Ingrid, for your introduction. Good afternoon. Today, I will actually address the pivotal role of private sector to addressing global climate crisis, particularly in supporting countries to achieve their NDCs and mobilizing climate finance. In climate negotiations, while governments are the primary drivers of policymakers, the actual execution of climate action crucially involves substantial investment from the private sector. As you can see actually from this graph, according to the Climate Policy Initiative in 2022, nearly $1.3 trillion was committed globally to climate finance, with almost half originating from the private sector. However, meeting the Paris Agreement goals will require significantly more resources. Let me show you the next slide. Yes, okay. So estimates suggest that an annual total of 6 to 12 trillion actually is needed, at least 5 times the current financial flow. The ongoing negotiation focus heavily on the NCQG, the new collective quantified goals of climate finance, calling for increased contributions from developed countries and the deliberation on whether certain emerging economies should also be among the donors. Despite the obligations of developed countries under the Paris Agreement to contribute to climate funds, they have struggled to meet their financial commitments. They underscore the necessity for private sector to become a more significant player in the international climate action. The recent Bonn Climate Conference highlighted the immense potential and responsibility that the private sector holds in driving innovation, mobilizing investments, and implementing scalable solutions to combat climate change. With over 8,000 delegates from around the world, the conference underscored the pivotal message. Private capital is indispensable if we are to meet our climate goals. So let me explore the key areas that the private sector can make a significant impact. First, mitigation. Private sector can accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy by investing in green technologies, renewable energy efficiency projects. Blended finance offers a powerful tool to mobilize to additional resources towards achieving net zero emissions in developing countries. However, challenges remain, including the lack of clear guidance and concrete mechanisms to integrate private sector actions into national and international mitigation strategies of the NDCs. Second, adaptation. Companies can support climate resilience by developing adaptive infrastructure capable of withstanding climate impacts. Public-private partnerships can offer an effective means to enhance adaptive capabilities across various sectors. However, minimal progress was made on the global goal on adaptation at the Bonn Conference, and there's a clear need for stronger frameworks and incentives to drive meaningful private sector participation. Third, finance and technology. Finance is the backbone of the global climate action, and the private sector plays a crucial role in mobilizing necessary resources. The Bonn Conference emphasized the critical importance of defining a new collective quantified goal on climate finance before 2025. It acknowledged the private sector's role in bridging the finance gap and in supplementing public finance to achieve climate goals. Development finance institutions pool funds for climate projects, while concessional finance promotes the adoption of low-carbon technologies. Innovative financing mechanisms such as matching grant schemes provide additional support for climate solutions. However, challenges persist. The efficiency of finance flow remains a major issue, with capital often locked in complex funds managed by the development finance institutions. Early-stage initiatives benefit most from grants and public finance, while large-scale projects are better suited to private investment. Enhancing access to finance for SMEs is another key aspect of promoting green business practices. Despite these opportunities, several challenges remain unresolved, including disagreement over donor and recipient bases, the quantum of finance needed, and the lack of specific incentives and the regulatory frameworks to mobilize private finance. The path forward requires a significant increase in climate finance, reinforced by strong signals to the international financial system. The next wave of NDCs should transform national climate plans into attractive investment plans for private finance. These plans will be essential in implementing the global targets set out in the COP28 global stocktake, including the tripling of renewables and doubling the rate of energy efficiency. Private sector can significantly support these targets, provided there is a detailed information on policy implementation. Effective NDCs require granular details on national pathways, sector-specific contexts, and robust policy frameworks to assure investors of the credibility of decarbonization plans. As we move forward, achieving meaningful private sector engagement will require clear guidance, robust regulatory frameworks, and innovative financial instruments. Enhanced collaboration between the public and private sectors is essential to ensure that business can contribute effectively to global climate goals. I encourage all the stakeholders, especially in the private sector, to engage actively, collaborate effectively, and push forward with ambition and determination. Thank you for your attention. Let us seize this opportunity to make a lasting impact and be the change we wish to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for giving us quite a global perspective. And next, we'll have Ms. Hermia Chen, the youth delegate of the Bonn Conference. Hermia is a very passionate climate activist. She is currently serving at the International Carbon Action Partnership, where she supports carbon market and pricing research, dialogue, and capacity building across diverse government levels. She is also pursuing a Master of Public Policy with specializing on climate policy in Berlin. So now let us hear from Hermia.
Hi, Ingrid. Thank you very much. And thank you, Carbon Care Lab, for supporting my trip to Bonn 60. And today I would like to emphasize on the importance of ethical and sustainable investment, as well as private investment importance in adaptation financing. So as Ingrid mentioned, I mostly follow carbon market negotiation, even in Bonn during SB 60. And therefore, I would like to take carbon market as an example to talk about the essence of ethical and sustainable investment. At least from a historical perspective, carbon market is observed to be a private sector's driven funding mechanism. However, this market-based mechanism had unfortunately lost some trust over the years from our observation online, but also on the ground at Bonn. There are a lot of parties, observers, organizations mostly, that worried carbon market as an excuse for polluting industry to continue with business as usual scenarios. And that is because there are companies, buyers that do not reduce their emissions as much as possible first and rely on offset to achieve their carbon neutral claims. And on that regard, we should make sure that buyers of credits, buyers in the carbon market, always try to lower their emissions as much as possible before they actually seek offsets as an options for the residual emissions. At the same time, credit should not replace investment in mitigations within companies' operations and value chains. And there are also a lot of other reasons regarding carbon market trust, and mostly on two grounds: the environmental integrity and social integrity. Regarding environmental integrity, it mostly refers to simply put it, is whether 1 ton of carbon, the credit that you're buying, actually equals to 1 ton of carbon removed or reduced from the atmosphere. And there has been a lot of reduction or avoidance-based emission products within the voluntary carbon market, even till today. And from the Bonn conference this time, countries had agreed to pause the discussion of whether or not including avoidance projects, avoidance credits in the 6.4 carbon credits mechanism until the discussion continue again in 2028. And before that, no avoidance credits can be traded under the mechanism. So that's one step forward for limiting avoidance credits and ensuring there's actual reduction in credits trade within the carbon market. However, for example, with Oxford Principle for Net Zero Aligned carbon offsetting, they're calling for more credits, more companies to transition to carbon removal offsetting for any residual emission for their durability, but also easier to prove their additionality. And on the other hand, there's always an aspect that I think in Hong Kong specifically, we often overlook would be the human rights aspect of a carbon market. The UN Special Rapporteur on the rights for indigenous people actually call for moratorium on carbon markets, or pause on carbon markets, citing there's a lot of human rights abuse related to carbon trading, naming land grabbing, people unable to understand the contract before signing the contract without free prior informed consent, etc. So there are a lot of human rights issues surrounding the carbon market current approach as well. And without addressing these issues and without companies actually emphasizing on the ethical and sustainable investment, this will further ruin the reputation of the carbon market, and actually with more people calling it to abolish the whole carbon market as a whole. So as a person that I actually trust carbon pricing and carbon market, that will be very sad to see. And while carbon market is still a very important channel to increase private fundings, good practice and good regulations is needed to ensure and to rebuild its reputation. And echo a little bit with what Lorraine has said earlier, climate adaptation financing is definitely lacking. From the climate adaptation finance gap report, we're seeing about 10 to 18 times, the gap is currently 10 to 18 times greater than what the current financial flow for adaptation is. And unfortunately, private sector is only contributing to about 2% of the tracked adaptation financing. Traditionally, adaptation projects seems to be less investable than mitigation projects. Adaptation projects, examples such as drought-tolerant crops, modernized irrigation system, or better monitoring and forecasting for extreme weather events. There are a lot of ways from government perspective, they can help create a more viable adaptation market that offer returns and to investors and public adaptation benefits, like what they have done for renewable energies for the last decades. Some examples include clarifying the country's adaptation goal and roles for investment, which Hong Kong government have not yet been the most clear on what kind of adaptation goals they're looking at. So hopefully with the renewal and the review of the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan, we hope to see more clear adaptation goals that is listed out for investors' reference. Financial regulators can also empower institutes to address physical climate risk that measure the risk and also the contribution to climate adaptation. How can they help with climate adaptation while addressing the risk? It's also important to create clearer adaptation metrics to track investment impacts. For instance, Standard Chartered, KPMG, and UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction had collaborated to develop a guide for adaptation and resilience finance. So they're providing a metrics for companies now to follow and track their investment so that we can improve transparency and easier to understand what private sector has contributed to the adaptation financing as a whole. So I'll pause here and continue to the discussion and the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Hermia, especially for highlighting the importance of ethical and sustainable investment practices. And our next speaker will be Mr. Alan Toh from Climate Finance Asia. Alan has been leading global and regional sustainability and ESG strategic marketing functions in various global companies for around 2 decades. And also for over 15 years, Alan has also devoted his time to help promoting social enterprise education. So now let us hear from Alan.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. So before I share my points, I would like to congratulate Hermia, Fun, and Lorraine for the great sharing and lots of insights. And it is so appreciated and happy to see, such a young generation has so much insights from around the world. And congratulations, and also credit very much to the Current Care Innovation Lab to enable those young generation. Yeah. So I think I would like to share a bit more about from the investor perspective on how various financial instruments and mechanisms can help address the climate change and support Hong Kong climate action plan. I will share some more kind of instruments or the mechanism. Yeah. So first of all is green bond and sustainability linked loan, which means the bond and the loan enable capital raising and investments for the new and existing projects with the environmental benefits. Probably some of you know that Hong Kong MA has updated the guideline on green and sustainable finance grants scheme 2 months ago as an extension of the last 3 years. And in a nutshell, this scheme consists of 2 tracks covering general bond issuance costs with the issuance size of at least 1.5 billion or equivalent Hong Kong dollar or equivalent foreign currency. And the issuance and also the external review cost, which is talking about 100 Hong Kong dollar million or the equivalent in foreign currency. And the grant for the general insurance cost is half of the eligible expenses up to Hong Kong dollar 2.5 million. And for the external review cost, it is talking about 800,000 Hong Kong dollar in total for the pre-issuance external review as well as the post-issuance external review services. Climate Finance Asia, as one of the first green bond approved verifiers, actually we see more and more demand for green bond verification from the pre to post-issuance to support the climate action plan. The other one is carbon market, which I think some speakers also briefly mentioned. And it is actually a different stakeholders have different opinion on this. While for the transition finance, it is one of the key vehicle to support the transitional or adaptation part of the carbon strategy. And actually in the April this year, SBTi released a statement and decided to allow the use of carbon credits towards the company's Scope 3 reduction targets. And as you know, Hong Kong Stock Exchange has core climate platform to facilitate the carbon trading, which I'm sure Andy will share a bit more in coming minutes. In addition, carbon market actually can support the transition finance. As the market starts to focus from the pure green finance to transition finance, it refers to the investment means to decarbonize high-emitting and hard-to-abate industries, such as the steel, aviation, and shipping, for example. This transition finance actually representing a multi-trillion-dollar opportunities for investor. And during the last COP28, transition finance dominated sustainable finance discussions, decarbonization journey. Another one is renewable energy investment fund. Investor can allocate the capital to funds specifically focused on renewable energy projects, including in the solar, wind, or other clean energy sources to promote a transition away from fossil fuels. Another one is Sustainable Real Estate Investment Trust, REITs, REITs. Hong Kong real estate sector plays a significant role in the emission. This sustainable risk investment can invest in the energy efficient buildings, green certification, and sustainable urban development. I think this is closely tied with the carbon care label, just one of the speakers just shared. And Climate Finance Asia has collaborated with a German indexing company to develop an Asian Pacific-wide green risk index. And Global X has, based on the index, to issue the Green Japan Risk ETF listed in Tokyo Stock Exchange 2 years ago. And the stock code is the 2855. So if anyone would like to learn more, you can check online. Another one I would like to share is the impact investing. This approach targets investment that generates positive social and environmental impact alongside the financial return. Hong Kong investors can support the climate-focused startup, clean energy, as well as the social enterprises. And also, which has been mentioned by Fan or Hermia, and also Kelvin, the PPP is also very important. And so the collaboration among the private sector, the government, and the public is very crucial in driving towards this. And I also heard in the market that there are more discussion on the blended financing options. For example, from the co-financing several green project or climate action projects from the private investor, as well as the development bank or IFC, as well as the bank, to have a co-financing option to fund those projects. Last but not least is capacity building and awareness building. We need to educate investors and the markets about the climate-friendly investment options. Raising the awareness about the sustainable finance is essential for driving positive change and climate actions. Hong Kong SAR governments, in order to strengthen the Hong Kong market players' capacity on green and sustainable finance, has launched a couple of years ago a Green and Sustainable Finance Capacity Building Support Scheme. The website is called the greentalent.org.hk, which to allow eligible individual applicants to have up to 10K Hong Kong dollar fund for capacity building. So those are some of the ideas that I can share with you all in this session, and hand over back to you, Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Alan, for providing us an investor's perspective. And finally, we will have Mr. Andy Lau from HKEX. Andy is currently overseeing the company's governance, policy, and strategy in areas including corporate climate actions, diversity and inclusion, and also philanthropy and community investment. So now I will leave it to Andy.
Thank you, Ingrid. First of all, thank you very much for having me to share some of the perspective from corporates in terms of really driving the overall decarbonization journey, not only for the corporate, but also for the society as a whole. So I think the first point I really want to make is that corporate do play a very important role in contributing to the overall climate action. It's pretty straightforward because corporate actually made a lot of impact towards the overall climate situation. To give you a sense, I here with me I have some statistics from the Hong Kong government. It's basically the use of electricity by different sectors in 2023. So in short, basically commercial and industrial sector contribute or basically use up to 73% of the overall electricity used in Hong Kong in last year. And basically the ratio or the percentage remain roughly the same for the past 2 decades. So basically it means private sector or corporate, if you like, are emitting a lot of a major part of the greenhouse gas for Hong Kong. So this is the sense. And to me, I think it is quite natural for corporate to really think about or seriously take climate action seriously, because they do have the expertise, they do have the resources, and they have the economic of scale to make greenhouse gas emission reduction or decarbonization in a more effective and efficient manner. So with that, I would like to share a little bit about what and how HAES has been doing in terms of driving the climate action. So again, to give you a sense, HAES is a very unique corporate, if you like, in the market and also in the community. We always describe ourselves wearing three different hats. One as a regulator, second as a exchange operator, and last but not least as a corporate. So let me go through these, unique roles and their associated climate action one by one. So as a regulator, we are responsible for administrating the listing rules, basically the rules that has to be followed by right now more than 2,600 listed company in Hong Kong. So actually back in 2013, more than a decade before, we have been promoting the ESG reporting, first by means of introducing into the listing rules as a voluntary obligation for listed committee report the ESG data or disclosure, including the climate or greenhouse gas emission. And as mentioned by previous speaker, ESG reporting is really important for not only the corporate itself, but also the stakeholders and also, say, for example, the government to really get the data, to have the right data, the measurement to really drive and formulate associate action and plan. And then as an exchange operator, in recent years, we have been doing quite a lot in terms of driving the climate finance. So back in 2020, we established the Sustainable and Green Exchange, or in short, we call it STAGE, which is basically a data platform to showcase or to provide all the information around those sustainable and green products listed on the exchange. For example, you'll be able to find, on STAGE that the green bond that listed on the exchange and their information around, for example, how do they make use of the proceeds for driving certain, green projects, or what is the underlying, green works or green contribution or financing they have done through these, financial instrument in their business. So it's really about, as an exchange, we really want to provide a platform that provide the transparency, provide the information for both the issuers and also the investor to make the informed decision to really, achieve the overall goal for green finance. And also, I also want to mention, and also mentioned by some of the speakers before, we also launched Core Climate, the voluntary carbon trading market in Hong Kong. We see that carbon credits is one of the very important tools or financial instrument to really make the transitional finance happen. So the Core Climate was launched in 2022, and since then we have been, continuing to expand or to really scale up the product available on the Core Climate platform, and then we will continue to really look into the climate finance closely and try to make use of our, position or our expertise in driving that way. And last but not least, as a corporate, we have been, we do see we have a role in reducing our own carbon footprint. First of all, this is something obviously beneficial to the environment, but also to ourselves as a corporate. We can probably touch on the benefit of doing so later on. And then we also want to, really see ourselves as a gold standard to really set a role model to other listed companies in Hong Kong. And that's why back in 2021, we have joined the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, or in short, GFANZ, to commit to net zero by 2050. And then basically last year, after several internal study, we decided to speed up that net zero target by 10 years, which means we are now targeting to reach net zero by 2040. And in addition to that, we also strive to hit carbon neutrality by end of this year. That means we are going to at some point at one point we will obviously, as mentioned by Hermia before, reduce our own greenhouse gas emission as far as possible. But at the same time, we will also try to make use of carbon credit to try to contribute to some of the carbon removal solution to sort of counterbalance to the unabated emission at this point, or by 2040, by 2024, and so on. So this is kind of the journey we have been through, and I'm sure given the debate or the development in climate science, in climate technology, and also climate politics, Hong Kong Exchange is going to continue to stay abreast of the latest development and to really want to make our overall climate action relevant to the net zero journey. So maybe I will probably take a pause here and give it back to Ingrid to lead the discussion.
Thank you very much, Andy, for sharing HKEX experience. And I'd like to start the discussion by following up on Andy's sharing. And of course, all panelists are very welcome to speak if you have any thoughts. Just now, Andy, you mentioned HKEX has some climate strategies and green products such as Core Climate, the Stage platform. So when you engage with the stakeholders, including investors or listed companies, did you encounter any challenges, or what has been the response from these stakeholders when you have to implement this kind of strategies? Because we have some private sectors friends here, maybe they can also learn from your experience.
Well, obviously there are quite a lot of challenges, but I will probably try to point out one key, common challenges that we always hear from our stakeholders is that there is lack of, a standardized or consistent way to really talk about climate change or to measure greenhouse gas emission, if you want a really solid example. I think this is something I believe all of our panelists will probably understand and sort of agree that, because when it comes to financing or policy or technology or even any other climate action, to me, I think the very first point for making all these action happen is to have a really universal and consistent way to measure what we are going to achieve or what we want to achieve. And obviously in the past decades or two, there has been a lot of standards or protocol talking about how we measure climate change effect or greenhouse gas emission, or as another speaker mentioned, to really quantify say for example the nature-based solutions for carbon removal or avoidance. It has been kind of a really rapid development over the past few years, I can say. And therefore, many stakeholders are not quite, up to speed, if you like, to those developments. And therefore, they have sort of create a sense of, whether should we or should I wait or to wait for a more clear standard or wait for a more consented way to talk about climate change or climate financing or climate action before they really take action. I think in certain extent the market and some of the investor and the public may still have some sort of this kind of sentiment, and therefore I think it is important for the different stakeholder, or if you put HKEX as an example, to really drive the discussion or to really drive the standardization of how we measure or how we talk about climate change, climate finance, and climate action, so that we can have the common language to communicate with, to understand with, and therefore we can put talking into action in a more efficient and quicker manner.
Thanks, Andy, for mentioning the maybe the lacking of a standardized measure, or maybe there sometimes the stakeholders may still not have a really common language when communicating. So other panelists, do you also have any thoughts on this question or in this topic? Alan, maybe.
Yeah, I echo with Andy very much because when I attend and also join different conference and also some clients discussion, those are the common standards and the regulations, and even the definition, like the taxonomy, is also a different jurisdiction have different definition, and also the different disclosure standards. So that's why I heard there's an ISSB, right, which are International Sustainability Standard Board, right, in order to centralize the standardized disclosure guideline. And also another point is about data, because it is not easy for especially for the SME, and the supply chain is mainly focusing, mainly concentrated in this region, and normally there is scope 3 of the tier 1 company, but how do they estimate and also disclose their climate emission data, and as well as there are lots of data provider, but their methodology and mechanism behind are quite different, and then so there are lots of challenges in the market currently.
Yeah, and just a quick note to the audience, you're very welcome to type your questions in the chat box, and we'll address to the questions later in the discussion session. And maybe Hermia or Kevin, do you also have any thoughts on this between different stakeholders, the problem?
I guess taking carbon market as the example, and Andy explained a lot on that already. But I absolutely agree how exponentially with different standard and certificates that has been boomed in the last couple of years. I guess with currently the ICVCM having their core principle standard, that's the most quote unquote perhaps reputable one in the market at the moment. However, we're also seeing that Gold Standard, for example, are working with other carbon registry to create a more standardized common methodology on how to certify credits. So hopefully in some years we can see a more standardized approach on credits and the verification of credits. That's my 2 cents on this.
Thank you. I would also like to ask Kevin, because under this kind of challenges, is it more challenging or is it difficult for private sector to contribute more to the cities? I mean, are the countries NDCs like under this kind of challenges?
Yes, actually, I think well, under the NDC, there are a lot of things actually we have to tackle. Mitigation, adaptation, finance, technology. These are actually will be included. So I would see actually. Of course, there's a lot of challenges actually the private sector is actually facing in of course like data. Of course, that definitely that data is one of the very important areas that companies need to tackle. But I will also draw the attention to probably not only talking about this, but also talking about something which also progressing very well. Actually, it's about technology innovation. I guess that the private sector can also contribute more of their insights on emerging green technologies and the potential of scaling up. A lot of startups. Technology startups actually they have a lot of knowledge can inform the technological aspects of NDCs and making them forward-looking and innovative. And actually, private sector is quite well positioned to drive technological innovation for tackling climate change, with governmental support in risk sharing and de-risking. There's a great potential for effective private sector participation in climate technology innovation. And relevant government funding schemes like the Green Tech Fund in Hong Kong, actually they play a crucial role in incentivizing pioneering efforts and catalyzing private sector investments. And apart from technology, I will also draw attention to different sectors, like particularly on industries. The business can actually offer more detailed knowledge about the decarbonization pathways in their respective industries. These sector-specific information are actually quite crucial for developing a credible and achievable NDCs. So I would like to also, draw audience attention to these two areas in the NDCs.
We have also talked a lot on the private sector part, and I also like to turn to Hermia, because as a youth climate activist yourself, do you think it's the private sector is engaging enough with the young people, or how can they better engage and collaborate with young climate leaders or young people like you? Or on the other hand, how can young people influence to a more sustainable investment practices?
Yeah, I think there are multiple layers to your question. So the first question will be how corporates or private sectors can engage young people. I would like to answer it from two perspectives. The first one would be perhaps on youth project financing. As a young person running my youth group, it has not been the easiest to organize activities, and especially with the access to fundings. There are a lot of aspects to this matter, but one of the things would be to lower the access barriers for youth projects. For instance, I came across a funding from the EU a few days ago, and in their fundings, they provide two types of grant amount to youth projects, one type for individuals and unregistered group, and the other type for registered group. As a young person, it might not be the most feasible, not exactly feasible, but it's challenging to get your company registered, especially if you're even younger, when you're in your high school, when you're in university, you have a great idea and you want to execute it, but then you do not have a bank account, an official bank account to receive fundings. So how can we have more perhaps micro grants for small projects for young people? And that's on the financial side. Continuous partnership, perhaps mentorship could also be very beneficial. I assume everyone here come from like a local school background. We have not been the best as teaching financial literacy on how to access funding, how to manage funders' relationship, how to tap into different resources, or how to even organize my personal finance. So having these kind of partnerships, having these kind of long-term engagement, it can make sure that it is not a one-off kind of tokenized approach, but a long-term partnership for both parties to understand what funders, what investors looking for, what we are looking for, how can we find common grounds and come together as to work on actual climate actions. And lastly, I think supporting, if you're wanting to engage with young people and supporting young people in projects, I think providing a small sum of money or not having the young person to use the money from their pocket would be very beneficial. Not everyone, I'm coming from a very privileged background. I recognize that I have the luxurious time to do my own things, not having to worry about personal finance, not having to worry about my family finances, and to explore my interests, but not everybody could do it. So sponsoring internships, having internships that is paid in the field, etc., that will already be beneficial to attract more people from different backgrounds to the climate field. And on the other hand, how can young people push for more sustainable investment? It is one of the most, this is the question that I've been thinking for the longest time, because there aren't a lot of options in Hong Kong, I would say. I moved to Germany for my master, and here I am able to find a bank that pledged not to invest in any fossil fuel, armed, weaponed, tobacco, etc. And I remember I was not able to find that in Hong Kong. And even for like MPF, I was looking for if there's any sustainable options for the MPF that my company offered. And it was not an option. So I'm hoping that perhaps on one hand, there is more education needed to understand what our investment actually means and how it can actually make a difference in the world. And on the other hand, we can push for having more alternative options, more sustainable options that at least people can choose from, to have the choice at least.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned is that money is king for the younger generation, and choice is really important. Alan or Andy, do you also have any thoughts on the collaboration with youth or youth participation?
Yeah, I have, but I'm not sure whether Andy, you have some point you would like to share first.
Okay, let me try to take this. I think we are sort of trying to doing so. As a matter of fact, I think the HAS Foundation is actually one of the sponsors to the CATI, the program that CSIRO is working on to support some of the really outstanding youth generation to to join COP meeting. Be it in Egypt, in Dubai, or upcoming COP29. So I think this is one of the many ways HAS and its philanthropy and the HAS Foundation is doing. In fact, we since we launched in 2020, the HAS Foundation has been providing different types of funding, be it for charity, be it for social enterprise, and also be it for university, for academic research, to support different types of projects or research on environmental issues, obviously including climate change. So I think we have been sort of on the right track, and of course we welcome ideas, and also we would like to have feedback from our stakeholder and from the community, for us to really to maximize our resources and the impact that we can deliver.
Yeah, I echo with Andy, and Hong Kong Stock Exchange in the last 2-3 years launched the Hong Kong YIX Foundation and support social enterprise and charity to Hong Kong community. And then I've been in this social enterprise as a judging panel or mentor for close to 2 decades, and I see Hong Kong Stock Exchange Foundation is one of the best in Hong Kong. So everyone, if you have brilliant idea, please apply and submit. And I would like to also share some sense to the group and also Hermia. Actually 2 days ago, I was in Chinese University of Hong Kong as one of the judging panel for the social enterprise startup scheme, and this scheme has been launched for close to 10 years already. And then so scheme is to really support those young social entrepreneur when they were still in the student in the university, to support their social and environmental idea. And then they have a 100K Hong Kong dollar as a startup fund. So if they are selected, so there are some schemes in Hong Kong, and to support the youth for their green and sustainable project. And I'm happy on Tuesday that there are lots of young talents. They are passionate about the social issues, and then try to address the social issues in a business model, viable business model. Another one I also like to respond is one of my colleagues is finalizing a book called "How Green Is Your Pension?" So I think, and this is will be published and sold in Amazon. And so this is very, very important kind of drive initiative, because this book will encourage everyone from the the youth and also our MPF, or the pension contributor, to the regulators, to the trustees. How do they manage the fund? How do they manage the pension? Because for example, in Hong Kong, we're talking about 20, 30, 50, 60 years of the accumulative investment. How those funds are being managed, and how green or climate resilience or adaptation approach that they are investing, because this is for a very, very long-term investment and for the society and community. So just would like to share with you those example, and then hopefully the market, the private, and also the senior citizens, regulators, as well as youth can collaborate more together to drive these things together.
Regarding the youth participation, I just saw a question from the chat box. To the panelists, do you also able to read the question from the chat box? I will read one for Andy. There's a question for Andy. Is HKEX ready to provide micro grants for youth-initiated projects? I think you've mentioned a bit.
Yeah, I think we have already covered the funding part earlier on. I guess we can always talk about the way or the specific format of these resources allocation, and at the same time I also want to make a point on that when it comes to I think after we are talking about the future talent and capability building, right? So I want to make a point that actually as part of the as a member of the Hong Kong Green and Sustainable Finance Steering Group, which is led by HAMA and SFC, and HA is one of the members, we are actually actively talking about how to really build the capacity for the green or green tech or green finance talent for the next decades. So I think you can now be able to find a lot of at least from HAMA website, you'll be able to find a lot of I don't know, should we call subsidized or supported courses on HAMA website. You'll be able to find a lot of these green finance or sustainable finance related courses provided by obviously different kinds of institutes or academia in the market. So I guess for those of you, the young generation who are really interested and passionate about the green finance and the green technology part, I strongly encourage you to have a look, to visit the website, to have a look and to see what kind of courses you feel like this is something you want to really have a in-depth look on it, so that I guess resources wise and also the knowledge wise is equally important when it comes to the future talents for green finance.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Just a quick note to the audience again. If you have any questions, please feel free to just type in the chat box in the Q&A box and we will address the questions. And I saw Fun is raising her hand in the Zoom, right? Do you have any questions for the panelists?
No, I just want to jump in and say thank you for Hong Kong EX Foundation support for the CATI training program. And also quick response to Hermes' questions. We do have small grants for the CATI alumni, so feel free to apply.
Okay, thank you, Fun. Thank you very much. And I would like to also turn to Kevin, because just now we have talked about a lot of we're doing very hard to encourage the private sector to do more in climate finance. But recently I noticed that in Hong Kong there are lawmakers, they're really concerned about the issue of greenwashing. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, the Legislative Council actually passed a bill urging the government to regulate greenwashing. So in your point of view, are there anything that the private sector should pay special attention to when they really have to develop climate finance strategies? Like when they are in a goodwill, but is there anything that they have to pay attention to?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Carbon Care No Lab and Greenpeace actually jointly published a report called An Evaluation of Hong Kong's Green Finance Policies earlier this year. Actually, at that time, you already highlight one of the key issues in Hong Kong's green finance is actually greenwashing. At that time, we actually call for Hong Kong government to develop the stronger anti-greenwashing regulations, create a robust implementation plan on green finance, and enhance accountability through quantitative targets and timelines. We are actually fully aware of that. And actually, because I think maybe for our audience notice, actually, why we so much pay attention so much on the greenwashing, because actually greenwashing poses significant financial stability risks by misallocating capital, slowing climate mitigation efforts, and eroding market trust, and exposing institutions to possible litigation. So despite global concern, Asian financial hubs, I think including Hong Kong, have been slow in that stringent regulations. And we actually I think one of the very important things is actually to call for a rigorous verification process, third-party audits, empirical data substantiation. Actually, are very crucial in combating these misleading environmental claims. So I think we actually list out a number of measures in the report. Actually, our audience maybe can look to our website and download it to have a look. And I would actually hope that HKES and including all our regulators, financial regulators in Hong Kong, to create a credible, impactful green finance market, aligning with regulatory expectation and contributing to global climate goals, and effectively channeling capital towards genuinely sustainable investments. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Andy, do you have anything to add? I saw you open the mic.
I just want to say I echo very much with Kevin and also other speakers that greenwashing is something we really don't want to have, obviously, and I think we slightly touched on the reason or the challenge that for the overall climate action, including the challenge of greenwashing, because at least part of the reason is the lack of consistent and standardized measurement or description or disclosure on climate action, be it greenhouse gas emission, be it your position on whether you are carbon neutrality or net zero, or the claim for carbon removal through the carbon credit. So eventually, obviously, HKES and also our associated stakeholder, including the Green and Sustainable Finance Steering Group that I just mentioned, has been working very hard on trying to really, minimize the risk of greenwashing. So that's why I guess you will not be surprised that in recent years, HKES has been doing a lot in terms of really improving the market transparency in terms of the ESG or climate disclosure. So that I think we are, despite all these challenges, we are very hopeful and optimistic that these challenges will be overcome in a proper manner.
Yeah, I saw Ellen turned on his mic. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, probably only a bit. I have been speaking in the last couple of years invited by universities as well as other organizations, and greenwashing is really one core part of my sharing during the previous speaking or panels, and echo with Kevin and Andy very much. And Kevin also mentioned that the CCIL has joined a paper with the Greenpeace, which have a sophisticated analysis and recommendation on this. And I think while we are having a regulation, a policy, while the education to the market is important, and during my sharing previously, I in other occasions, I always pick some case, greenwashing case, so that to let the audience know about, okay, what exactly is the greenwashing, what kind of potential greenwashing things that may happen to the organization, from among different industries. So I think this is also quite important to have a awareness to the market as well, and also the financial impact for the company if they are being charged as accused as greenwashing.
Yeah, we've talked about the many challenges and concerns, including greenwashing, and hopefully we can properly respond to these kind of challenges so we can take the next step forward. And now I would like to go back to Andy again, because I want to talk about how to take a more ambitious step for the private sector to take, because you also mentioned that HKEX is setting the net zero goal by 2040, which is 10 years earlier than the original target. Also, it's the government's target. And so some companies may regard it as quite an ambitious move, actually. So do you have any advice to some other companies, leaders here, that if they want to enhance their sustainability efforts, if they want to take a bigger step, what keys or what practices should they consider now?
Well, I think, thank you very much for that question, which is a very good one. I think eventually when we try to think about climate action, one point I want to make is try to take action first. I know we have been talking about a couple of challenges, including the lack of consistent language or standards, or there are still some sort of uncertainty when it comes to, say, for example, the carbon removal technologies or the labels, and also some of the financing, the availability of fund or capital. But I have to say my personal view is we all cannot just sit here and wait until something happens. We all have to take the first step and try to create the chain effect per se to motivate the whole society per se, or the market per se to take action. If everybody is just sitting there and waiting for others to take the first step, no one is going to make that move. Okay, so and we all understand that it's pretty simple demand and supply theory. If we all take even though a very small step, we can create that momentum and create that a scale of economy to really drive that change and to create the demand. And it is something, if you while today we are talking about the climate finance, we are talking about the investment and the capital market, we have to believe that if there is a good enough momentum, a critical amount of demand, the supply will appear, the supply will come. So I think somehow we don't have to be overcomplicated or over worry about the availability of standards or availability of technology and finance. When you at least demonstrate your ambitious or your target to really move in that direction and try to influence others, it creates a chain effect, and it creates the momentum and the critical scale so that the market will get this solution sooner than we expect. So I think with that mentality, I very much encourage other corporates to try to take action first. You don't have to take all the action at one time. Take the small step, take whatever you feel comfortable, and try to move to that direction. And more importantly, when it comes to the climate action or the decarbonization journey, don't solely take it as a kind of a compliance or responsibility or a kind of cost. It actually, I would say, there are actually many opportunities embedded in this journey. And for example, when we talk about the NDC, if you look closer in it, you can find a lot of opportunity, business opportunity right there. Be the utilization of technologies, the upscaling of renewable energy and use of data, etc., etc. I'm sure there are so many smart people, intelligent people that can provide the solution, and therefore, once we try to look at this climate action in a more positive and optimistic way, you'll be able to find a lot of opportunities, and eventually this kind of opportunity will incentivize your corporate action. And I do believe this is something we have to, everybody should try to get to that mentality to drive that, action.
Yeah, I agree. The mentality of taking the initiative to take the first step to start is really important, very essential. And I haven't seen new questions from the audience. So before we wrap up, are there any final comments or final notes that any of you would like to share or would like to add on? Okay, if not, that's all right. That's all the time we have for today. We had a really fruitful and very insightful discussion. And to address the climate crisis, I think we certainly need multi-sectors and collaborative participation in the future. And here in Hong Kong, we're certainly feeling the effects of extreme weather conditions, as also mentioned earlier by Chen Yao. These days, the intense heat is also a really great reminder for us that there's really a need for urgent climate actions. And I think the private sector's involvement and the leadership will be really important as we take a bigger step or a more ambitious step forward to a more sustainable future. So I must thank our panelists, Ellen, Andy, Hermia, and Kevin, for sharing your invaluable insights with us today. And also a big thank you to the audience for their participation. Also thank you Carbon Care InnoLab for organizing this webinar. So I'm sure CCIL will have some other events going on very soon. So please also stay tuned, and I hope to see you all again. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Goodbye and have a nice evening. Have a nice day.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.